MJ, we're talking to founders of companies that are 5 million to 40 million. They all want to make more money. You were a 2-time CRO, and then you scaled one of those companies from 0 to 750 million. That company was acquired by Salesforce. In today's market, what are these leaders not understanding about how to go to market and how to make more money?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think the thing that's important for us to ground in is the landscape has completely changed, right?
Yeah.
So back when I was building Buddy Media, which is a company that you talked about that we took to 750 million, then sold to Salesforce, that company, we relied on a lot of traditional marketing, but we
Yes.
also did, the SEO, paid. That's what a lot of marketers used and
Mm-hmm.
CROs used to grow companies in the past. The game has completely shifted. Right now, SEO is harder than ever, and that's
Yeah.
because everybody's going to AI, right? Like if you have a question, you're
Yeah.
going to AI, you're going to Claude, OpenAI. And then paid is more expensive than ever. You're getting less
Mm-hmm.
impressions and less clicks through. So today, the game is all about content. It's all about
Yes.
creating a personal brand and creating trust. And so the best companies that are doing it out there are building trust through personal brand, not only from the founder or the CEO, but from
Yeah.
all of the operators within that company. And
Yeah.
uh, and that's the thing that we're focusing on, and that's the thing that you really need to get right to grow today.
Yeah. You know what so what's interesting is I had a guest on that's in the new space of AEO, it's like AE search optimizing. The thing is when I listened to him unpack everything, what it really was the correct way to do SEO before SEO got like hijacked by by the keyword stuffing and the backlinks and everything.
Yep.
So before I agree with you that the total market has changed, and I want to focus most of the show on what you're doing with Stanley and how these guys can make money that way. But I also want some of these founders to remember that their like content used to mean something. There was a richness to it. So what was that back in the day, like when SEO did work? What were you trying to do out there? What were you trying to get to the market? Like what was that authenticity?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, content, from the beginning of time, whether it's written by AI or written by a human, is all about being useful. It's telling a
Yeah,
story and being useful. So the masters at SEO in the past were able to tell a story about from their company that made whoever the reader was feel a little bit closer to them, a little bit closer to
mm,
their company, while
mm,
also helping and solving a problem.
yeah,
So that's the way, that's how you build authority. That's how Google looks at your content, and people start to backlink. That's why backlinks are very important.
right,
But a lot of people have manufactured backlinks.
right,
That's part of the game. But traditionally, why backlinks were important in the first place is that there were a lot of articles linking to you because that content happened to be valuable. And that's
yeah,
never changed. That's not going to change. It just
okay.
becomes a little bit different of a strategy now that any type of content can get created with AI easily.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different today.
But I think what I've noticed, which was honestly, it was shocking to me, but 2 years ago, a big influencer said randomly, LinkedIn posts are indexing really hard on Google, like really high, LinkedIn and Reddit. And then I just started noticing, wow, you search on Google, which for a while was seeming kind of useless, right? Because they have to figure out where to fit in their now they have to figure out where to fit in their AI, where to fit in their sponsors. You get like 3 to 4 top links that I don't trust because they're probably all keyword stuffed, or they pay a lot of money for good SEO. But recently, like little snippets from LinkedIn are pulling up there and they're useful again. And I remember I've told this story before, but because it's such a random exercise, I was putting content on LinkedIn before I had a good LinkedIn strategy, which you and I will talk a lot about here in a minute. Um, I was just putting content that performed well on YouTube or Instagram. I'd go put that video on LinkedIn. One of them was about the salary at Buc-ee's gas stations. They pay those guys like $150,000 a year. And just randomly, I was on my porch smoking a cigar one day, and a guy texted me. He was like, "Hey, I was Googling Buc-ee's salaries, weird thing to do." And he's like, "And you popped up." And then I did it later. Like right on the front screen was my little 90-second video. I used to stage my verticals. I had a hook, like this might not be a popular opinion, and then go through it, and they were ripping through there. So it showed me again that it was useful, but it's like I feel like the search engines are trying to break all the traditional ways that we went to market. So maybe could you, I want to talk more about your background, but could you introduce to the audience what you're doing now, and then what Stanley is, and then why you feel like that's so important to these founders? And then I'd love it if you could also distinguish, you're talking about an operator brand, which to me like sung straight to my heart. So what's all that mean to you?
Yeah, cool. I'll dig into it. I first want to just call out what you talked about on LinkedIn, because I think it's an important point that you made. And SEMrush just recently launched a report this year. They've done it in the past, but then they updated again this year, which is most cited websites via LLMs.
Yeah.
So what's actually showing up in Gemini, OpenAI, Perplexity, and the number one was Reddit. And like there's a reason for that. Like people are having open, honest conversations on Reddit. The problem with Reddit is that it's also anonymous. So at the same time where people are having open conversations, there's a lot of issues that are introduced into a platform that's anonymous, but you know that the conversations are authentic because people can say what they wouldn't say if they weren't anonymous. Yeah. So it's very interesting. So it's, there's no wonder why that's number one. But
it's hard to sorry to cut you off. I've always wondered this about Reddit. It's hard to promote on Reddit. Do you know what I mean? It's
it's almost impossible because it's like against their terms of service, and they'll take you off. Yeah. So it becomes difficult outside of paid ads to like make a real thing, and then obviously people are making like burner accounts and trying their best, but it's against terms of service. So LinkedIn is number 2. So most cited websites by the LLMs, LinkedIn is number 2. So we talked about SEO, AEO. That is becoming the game. And why did that show up? Like, why did that post about Buc-ee's show up on LinkedIn versus maybe where you posted on YouTube?
That's right, because it was on YouTube.
Right.
Great point.
Right. So, like, why is it showing up from LinkedIn?
And Google owns YouTube. Isn't that funny? So I'm searching on Google. Google put priority on the LinkedIn video, even though the short was also on YouTube. I've never connected that dot. That's outstanding.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. But one of the reasons that's happening is because that's where they know authority is. So LinkedIn is one of these platforms where the content on it is typically majority educational. So the content that's on there is more thought leadership based. There's some entertainment, but it's very tiny. Whereas if you look at a platform like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, those platforms tend to be very entertainment focused. Even the education feels like edutainment, sort of. So it's very easy for these LLMs to take a look at LinkedIn and say, look, this is content that is built for thought leadership. It's built to educate. That's the type of content that works here. And we know that if posts are doing well on LinkedIn, it is adding value, So
do you think it's on the... I still wonder, and you're more of an expert in this. I'm just guessing. You hear this soundbite that like there's 1 billion users on LinkedIn, right? 1% of them are posting, and I wonder if there's a gap that's being presented. I consider myself a layman. Like if I'm figuring out that LinkedIn is social media on easy mode right now, other people are going to figure this out real soon. Do you think that surpasses Reddit, or like eventually becomes one of the best indexed sources out there?
I think it will over time as people kind of wake up to the fact that B2B sales happen on LinkedIn. So if you look at all of the platforms that we're talking about right now, 80% of leads that are generated from social media in B2B are coming from LinkedIn. 80%. So if you look at that across all of the other platforms, it's an area where if you are running a B2B business, it is incredibly important to be on and create content. And I think as more B2B companies understand that, coupled with the fact that we all need to start creating these operator brands now. Creating a personal brand has become your resume, and creating content is more important than ever. So the confluence of two of those things, people waking up to how important the platform is, and then people understanding that their personal brand is really important. Those two things happen, and I think we're going to see a lot more content getting created on LinkedIn, and you're going to see like the authority and the amount of AEO and the amount of citations increase over time.
If somebody leaned into you and said, all right, well, what's the difference between personal brand and operator brand, or even founder brand is another label put out there. Do you distinguish them, or are they the same for you?
I think personal brand is I think an operator brand is a type of personal brand. I think
Okay.
the distinction that's important to me that I want to make is the difference between someone who I'd say is like an influencer creator and then
Mm,
someone who's building a personal brand around being an operator. Building an
mm,
operator brand. Those two things are very different to me. And the
mm,
big difference is usually what's happening with an influencer is they could be creating any type of content. They could be creating content just because that content has entertainment value. That is
mm,
perfectly fine. That's great. I mean, I love that. But an operator is typically different. An operator is more build in public content where the content
mm.
is serving as their resume in addition to building trust for them. This is
Yeah.
why like it's so important on the B2B side. So like if you are building a product, going out and talking about how you're building it, why you're building it, why it's
Mm,
important, the problems that it could solve is super
yeah.
important at the founder level. And then beneath that, everybody has their own area of expertise that they're
Yeah.
working through. When I started posting content on LinkedIn, I would post about everything that I knew about. I'd post about,
Mm-hmm.
sales, the experience I had,
Mm-hmm.
growing startups, the experience I
Mm,
had. And then I started posting about the experience I had growing on LinkedIn. It was just kind of like, hey,
mm,
I had a really good post that generated 1,000 followers from one post.
mm.
That's pretty atypical. And
Yeah.
here are all of the reasons why I feel like that happened. And then here's the
Mm,
methodology that I use to create my posts. Here's how I create content. Here's how I use Canva. Here's how you know,
mm,
here's my entire process, my routine. And so what I realized through posting all of those different subjects is there are audiences out there that have those problems. There are audiences out there that
yes.
kind of are trying to figure out how to be more effective at selling. There are audiences
Mm,
out there that are trying to figure out how to drive more leads through content. There are audiences out
mm.
there that are just trying to figure out how to grow on LinkedIn because they want to expand their audience and they want their content to get
Yeah.
read. So,
Do you remember the guy? He had the blue bottle, glass bottle of water. He was like a jacked dude, and he was running really fast. Do you remember those videos going viral?
I don't remember that one.
All right, he had a name, and I apologize, my man, for forgetting your name. But someone did a case study
Shout
on
out
the
to the blue
fact that
bottle.
shout out to the blue bottle. Well, two things happened. So he got millions and millions of views for months. Saratoga was the name of the water brand. I do remember that. Two things
Oh,
happened.
I totally remember putting the face in the
Yeah,
water.
everyone started
Now it's coming
spoofing
back to
it.
me. Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was like
yeah.
the 5 a.m. thing. I'm doing a bunch of push-ups and I'm splashing
Saratoga,
my
Saratoga water
right.
slash the
So
Saratoga water. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that guy. Yeah.
what I want to unpack in this is I have a lot of these CEOs now. They're personal friends of mine, and they own real companies, probably or they lead rather real companies. 25 million. I was just working with two service startup providers, 24 million, and like they're just wasting opportunity. And so what I want to ask you on the end of this story is like, why is it so important? Because I think there's a real monetary value to it. But the Saratoga guy, in the case study somewhere, two things happened. One, he wasn't selling anything. So like that goes back to me like, okay, you got a bunch of views. Like I didn't even see like a I'll be your personal fitness trainer link. It was just like views for the sake of views. So what did that do for you? And then two, Saratoga didn't maximize on it. Like some of the bars I noticed started stocking the bottle, so maybe they got a what do you call it a peripheral uplift or something. But like, not even that company said, "Man, we got to strike while the iron's hot. Let's go in and do a collab. Let's do some videos. Let's do our own spoof or like put a buy now link." So why do you think these into generically classify these guys like these owners are my age, they're like late 30s, mid 40s. I'm 43. We grew up when Facebook, you would like take photos of your food, and it was like people took selfies of themselves. Why do you think they still face resistance when it's like, okay, I've got a service business that's a SaaS company and the average sale per customer is $1,000 to $10,000 ARR, and I could get like 1,000 more of those by just creating content. Why is this not clicking for more people?
Yeah, I think content's really hard. I think two things.
Okay,
One,
that's fair.
knowing what to post, doing it in a way, and let's start with like just putting yourself out there is hard. Putting yourself out there to judgment is very hard. And
Super
so
fair.
when you start doing that, like you are worried about what your friends, your colleagues, your employees, how they're
Mm,
going to perceive you, how they're going to perceive the content. Everyone is very afraid of being cringe online. And so
mm,
you kind of have to cross this like valley of cringe. Like there's a meme out there
mm,
where it's like everything you want is
mm.
on the other side of this valley of cringe and you're
Yeah,
sitting on the one
yeah,
side of it and you have to get to the other side. But to get there, you gotta actually be cringe. And
yeah.
so I think a lot of people just aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to put
Is
their
it
SM
cringe
out
or they
there.
just feel uncomfortable? Because there is cringe. Cringe is a real thing. But
Yeah,
then,
for
like,
sure.
45-year-old CEO, like, giving a real valuable demo of what his product just did for an SMB customer, it might not be the best production quality, but I wouldn't call that cringe. Like, you just shared real value.
Neither would I, and
Yeah.
you and I are biased because we create content, we
Yeah.
put it out there. But I think
Yeah.
like the average person would say, I just don't know how this is going to be received. And then, here's the next thing, Chad, is you put it out there and then you get the crickets. Like when I
For
started
sure.
posting on LinkedIn, I got crickets and I got crickets for
Heck
like a
yeah.
month straight. So like every post that was
Yeah.
going out, I was asking my wife to like it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel
I'm
good
still
when you
pretty
have to
much
ask
there,
your
but
wife to like it.
I don't ask my wife to like it because I know she's not the ICP. In fact, if I see her pull me on YouTube, I'm like, get off there, babe. It's like, you cannot be one of the 8 people watching this video. Like, you're skewing the percentages.
Yeah. So I think these things hurt, and I think this is why you need help and need a partner, or at least a lot of people
Totally
do
agree.
to get started
Totally agree.
because these platforms can be intimidating. Like
Yeah.
even for me, and I consider myself an expert on the LinkedIn platform now because I've just been
Yeah.
posting for so long every single day and I
Yeah.
kind of understand the dynamics of it. Like even when I look at platforms like YouTube and Instagram, like those are
Mm.
intimidating for me. And I feel like I'm like a
So hard.
content creator. So for someone
Mm.
that's not naturally a content creator, like from day one, I think it's very
Mm.
difficult. So I think that's the first thing is like that is kind of like overcoming that general
That's
like
fair.
human fear
You know what?
fear.
It sucks because uh, I have been learning content. By learning content, I mean things like lighting these accent lights. You've got a beautiful one in your corner. The bokeh settings on these cameras. That took me about 2 years. The little soft white box I've got next to me. Actually, you've got a mate. I could tell it's pointed at your eyebrow. You've got great lighting right now. Shout out to you, MJ. That took me about 2 years. Now, what bothers me is like I meet all these business owners. This is a co-working space that I'm in. I'm grateful to Pallet North Shore. Shout out to Pallet North Shore in Covington, Louisiana. And I just pour this value onto these business owners. Nobody does anything with it. But also, like, I don't want to be your content guy. I'm not a content guy. I grow businesses. I cut my teeth on enterprise businesses, 40 million to 700 million. And now I'm trying to go down market and like help real businesses, 5 million to 40 million. It gets tempting to be like, here's how you do content. But
Yeah.
also, when I talk with them, I had a venture capitalist on the other day, and I looked at his LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, man, this is amazing content. I said, I see that you're not really doing anything on LinkedIn. He's like, oh, no, I max out my connection requests every week. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. You clearly don't want advice. But it's like, I just want to pour that into them because it's so critical to, even in my RevOps world, which you call quote to cash, you got to generate awareness. You got to get proposals out there, quotes, offers. You have to get people to handshake, accept those, get an order, fulfill the order, and then stick it in your bank account. Like that's basic business. But it all starts with that attention and awareness, and that's content. So, and maybe we still didn't get to the question. The original question, like 7 minutes ago, was MJ. Please introduce yourself and tell the audience what you're doing, who you're doing it for, how you serve that audience now, how you go to market. So please do that. But then like impress upon these guys. If you want to 5x, 10x your $5 million to $40 million business, you got to be doing this.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So, like by way of introduction, now that we're already we're already chopping it up. So I'm MJ. I've worked in SaaS software for 20 plus years. So I was on the client side as
Nice.
chief customer officer. I've been a CRO of a few businesses. I've been a
Mm,
founder CEO for a venture-backed business that we raised venture for, and now I'm the GM of a tool called Stanley. And
mm-hmm,
Stanley is an AI head of content that's under a
mm,
larger umbrella of a company called Stan. And
mm,
Stan has been around in the creator economy for 5 plus years, helping
mm,
creators monetize content that they put out there. So that was like the mission of the company.
right.
And now we are helping not only creators create content through an AI platform, and I could talk more about the way that it works, but also helping operators within businesses create content because we feel like that's very important as well, right? So like
Yeah.
that is the next wave of content creators are actually operators who are employed within a business, not a
Yes.
full-time creator. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the tool that we're building now will help businesses, B2B businesses, any type of business leverage content within their company so their employees can create content. They can create content that isn't cringe. They don't have to deal with the blinking cursor problem that we talked about a second ago, which is like, what do I post? And Stanley will help you with all of that. So,
And
coach,
just so the audience is clear, I know that I track your comments now. So I know that you're heavy with the influencers out there. But the first 3 people that suggested Stan/Stanley to me, the first one was the CEO of that $24 million company. She was like, Chad, try this link. It'll give you a few days free. So like, it's not, I don't want people to hear that and think, oh no, influencer. No, these are people that are trying to grow real companies.
yeah, absolutely. Like we have a community for Stanley, and we have some pretty heavy hitting CEOs from companies that you would know. You know, so
Yeah.
Fortune 500 companies, executives within those companies who are working on building their own brand and
Yeah.
using Stanley to do it. So
How did you, I am curious, you, well, a funny story on this. So you did the 750, you grew to 750 million, Salesforce swallowed that company, and then you took a VP role at Salesforce, right? There was a VP commenting on LinkedIn about the new headless strategy, which I'm fascinated by, and I was like, hey, do you want to come and do a podcast about the headless strategy? She said yes, and I'm super sorry, but I charged to come on podcast. And I was like, wow, VP of Salesforce, like the name, like the brand authority is that strong, huh? So you're not even going on a podcast without taking money. So, but my question for
they're the best
you,
salespeople in the world, hands
oh, for
down.
sure,
Let's
and good
call
for
it
her.
let's call it what it is.
For sure. And I didn't, yeah, you know, because they come into a company and it's like, doesn't your company deserve Salesforce? You know, it's like, they really milk you there. Anyway, shout out to her. Like, I get it. Time's precious and it's not her main go-to-market model. For you, though, I like to ask all sort of exit guys this. You exited at 750. Maybe you had an earn back. You don't have to like necessarily go through all the details, but why Stanley? Like now you landed in something new. You took a GM position. You clearly like what you do, and I love your post. So like, just for anyone who maybe hasn't done an exit, how did you get from there to like? Because also you did 2 CRO positions right after that. So like,
Two
what was driving
CRO
you?
positions and founded my own company. So
Yeah,
I love technology. I love
yeah,
building technology companies. And I really like this kind of stage where it's like 0 to 1 or kind of like, I don't know, call it 1 to 10, you know, in that range and then kind of growing from there. So I like being on the ground floor, working with really great people to build companies that I care about. And so why Stan, why Stanley? I was a CRO at a e-commerce company. So I was had to go to market there, leading the marketing team and the revenue team. We were growing that business, and I was creating content. So I started creating content in 2024. That's when the crickets happened, and I started like doing my initial posts. But that year, I just committed to posting every day for a single year for the entire year, no matter what happened.
good. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I made that commitment, and it was something that was important to me, and I just stuck with it. And then over time, I really fell in love with the process of creating content. Like I really loved like figuring out a process, like figuring out a problem, solving problems, talking about how I solved it, putting it out there, getting feedback, taking that feedback, improving the content. All of that stuff I really loved. So as this is happening, I'm falling in love with creating content, but I'm also building an audience. So I'm actually like building an asset for myself that I could use anywhere. So it's like the idea is build distribution before you need it. Okay, so like if you
Yeah.
have an audience, you have distribution.
Also, I'm looking yours up real quick. Yeah, so 70,000 followers now.
Yeah,
69.
yeah, almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started, you know, growing that audience and like growing the distribution, and so I learned how powerful that was because it started opening up doors for me.
Yes.
And people would reach out to me because they saw that I had expertise,
Yeah.
and And the way I landed at Stanley is like I have a very unique background. That background is
Mm,
I've led B2B
mm-hmm,
go-to-market teams for a long time.
mm,
I've been at Salesforce, I've been at high growth venture-backed startups, I've
mm-hmm,
grown my own company, and I've been in this kind
mm,
of like B2B space for a long time. And
mm.
in addition to that, I'm like a content creator. It's like
Yeah.
what's the saying? There's like a bear is interesting, a unicycle is interesting, but like a bear on a unicycle is like incredibly interesting. Like
Yeah.
I'm like the bear in the unicycle because I'm a
No,
content
that's a great
creator.
way of putting it. Yeah.
I'm a content creator plus I am a
Yeah.
B2B sales leader. So
However, just so you did not have an audience when you exited for 750 million, right? Is that fair?
true, zero
Okay.
audience.
Isn't this fascinating? 750 million exit is like no, like a $10 million exit. Congrats. You did something 1% of the world might ever do in their lives. 750 million. So, but if you walked into a room, you had to re-earn all of the respect, right? The hard way. Nobody
Yeah,
cared. Nobody knew. You couldn't wear a badge. So I think what I try to, and maybe you can articulate this less cringe than I'm about to, but it's like when I think about even there's a CEO that I pick on a lot because I love his company, and for some reason all the guests like the VCs love him. He's an ICP. He's a SaaS company that's like probably just shy of 40 million. He's got like what I want is for him to be able to walk into a room at a seminar, or even think of Kaseya Connect as a big industry event in Las Vegas. Thousands of people are going there. Kaseya is a billion-dollar company. Well, you're walking around a center, people are walking up to you.
yeah.
Charlie, I got to talk to you. Charlie, how you doing? You know, and it's like you don't even know why they're finishing your sentences for you. They feel like they've known you. It's the parasocial. So, like, have you tried to articulate since you've experienced that? Have you tried to articulate that benefit also to these founders?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like
Yeah.
that is super important. And just kind of, listen, I'll put it this way, just having an audience gets you into the door of it
Right.
makes you seem legitimate immediately. It's like we communicate status in different ways, and people don't
100%.
talk about audience in this way a lot, but I'll communicate this way because I believe in it. It's like people communicate status in different ways. You will like drive a fancy car, wear a Rolex, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's been happening since the beginning of time because status is important to human
100%.
beings. Just having an audience that's larger immediately gives you credibility. Like
That's right.
right there, right off the bat, like people will introduce me saying that I have 70,000 followers on LinkedIn. Like,
Yeah.
and nobody really cares that much, but it gives you a little bit of
Isn't that funny?
credibility, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because my first thought isn't, oh, MJ must be much better than me, but it's, oh, MJ did something that I haven't figured out yet. You know, there's social proof that comes with it.
Exactly. And I think so that's helpful. It's helpful in so many ways. And
Yeah.
so like I'm an example of that where what I'm building now I love. I love because
Yeah.
we are helping B2B founders who I was, and we're
Yes.
helping B2B sales leaders and GTM leaders, which I was in a past life,
Yeah.
be content creators, which I am now. So like it's the perfect role
That's
for
so
me.
good.
And the way that I met the founders of the company was through LinkedIn. So like they
Mm,
saw me, they saw that I had credibility, and
mm,
that credibility came through my audience size and the amount of engagement that
mm.
I was getting on the posts. And they knew that I understood the platform at a deep level because I was talking about it. So
Yeah.
that's the same experience I want every operator to have. Like whether
Mm,
you're, a designer, an accountant, an AE, an
mm,
SDR, whoever,
mm,
you should be able to have that same experience. You are judged based on your expertise, the audience that you've been able to build, the engagement that you get on your posts, and that becomes your
mm.
resume in the future. Not
For
not
sure.
not just the job that you had with a couple bullet points under it.
Who to close out the intro? Um, what would you say? Do you have a range for ICP, like a revenue range?
Yeah, we do now. So the tool can be used by any size business. We
Yes.
we think it's best for 5 million plus
Yeah.
in a B2B company, and we really make a lot of sense for like B2B SaaS companies.
Yeah.
So if
That's great.
if your primary prospect is on LinkedIn, that's who you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
Our tool is really helpful. And we're
That's
on LinkedIn
awesome.
today, but we're expanding out to all of the different platforms. So you'll have a head of content
Yeah.
that understands you, understands your content pillars, understands what performs well, not only across LinkedIn, but across all the different the channels in the
Yeah, it
future.
is interesting. Just maybe two tactical things. You said earlier you posted every day for a year. I also made that commitment, and I did it the wrong way because I changed niches. So, in fact, I want to get into what I'm going to get into is like what it means to be an operator brand. So I started, and did you get that tip from Russell Brunson, or was that just stuff you had heard before? Post every day.
Post every day was, I knew consistency was important. I don't know where like I got it
Okay,
from, whether it was
no
like,
worries.
whatever, but it was like I knew making the commitment was important. And I also
Yeah.
knew that it was going to really be painful to the
Yes.
ego after like accomplishing some things in my career. I knew it was going to be really painful for the ego to get 0 likes. So I made the
That's so
commitment
good.
to
That's
overcome
right.
it because I'm like, it's going to happen. I just have to feel that pain.
That's so good. I guess my point to the audience is I feel like that advice post every day for reach was useful 3 to 5 years ago. I don't think that people need to make that commitment now. I do think you need to find a way to learn. And if that means post every day, post every day. But like what I love about LinkedIn is that I've found that giving the post room to breathe is very helpful. So I don't post every day. Also, the other tactical point, one reason I've really grown to like LinkedIn is well, to be clear, YouTube's my primary distribution channel, but like LinkedIn is my primary social media channel. It's just I don't want to figure out X or Twitter or Instagram. They all have different requirements and needs, and you might not think so. Like I remember 20 years ago, maybe Hootsuite was real big, and it was like, oh, just it'll distribute to all your platforms. I found that that's not really useful. You need to get your pulse to one platform, figure out what ticks there and what doesn't. And LinkedIn's fascinating to me because it's like the stuff that used to do really good on Facebook 10 years ago, or even X or Twitter. And I think that's a great playing field for an operator. So I love being on LinkedIn because of that. Now, I personally identify as an operator. And when I first got into content, I was like, oh, let's go try a dating niche. I'll be honest about it. It was a bad idea. It wasn't a bad idea because it was good content. But then like I have four kids, and I was like, is that the legacy I want to leave them? And so then I moved into like, oh, let's go into super low SMB. And then I'm like, why am I talking SMB? I work in $40 million to $700 million companies. There's like an avalanche of difference between us, and I'm too arrogant to appreciate their EOS challenges or so. And then I was like, let's just talk about what I've been doing the last 20 years, which is RevOps. And I literally made that change probably 2 months ago, shifted all the content to just expert, took off. I mean, LinkedIn took off. These
Amazing,
things
man.
took off. It's so good to just do what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done probably 30 interviews in the last 2 months that are just staggering out here. Anyway, that was me being an operator. And I think I think that was finally me. I'm still trying to figure out how to come down market, to be clear. When I talk
Yeah.
to a $20 million company and I say 40 million to 700 million, they don't want to talk to me anymore. That was weird to me. There was a lot of arrogance there. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. But like just being an operator was so refreshing. So what do you define as an operator? And then maybe it'd be helpful to say what's not an operator, because I heard you list a few things as operators. I agree with all of them. So maybe the contrast of like who we're not talking to, that would be helpful too.
Yeah, yeah. I always use this like influencer versus operator like example
Good.
because
All
like
right.
the
I see what you're doing.
influencer is typically making money from content, right? So like
Yes.
they are the product. So if you think
Yes.
about it that way, like influencer creator typically like they are the product. Their primary source of revenue is the content. So that's interesting. An operator is very different. So an operator is creating an audience around solving a problem. And typically the product is like their product. So it's either a
So
product that they're
good.
selling or a product that they work for. So the product is very different when you're talking about an operator brand. And usually if you're an influencer, you can gain attention tons of different ways. Like you could just be a great
Yes.
entertainer. You could be a really great entertainer,
You
but
could
when
be
you're an
smoking hot. I'll say it. I'll be the one that says it. I have no
you
problem
you
saying
you could you
that.
could look good. Those accounts work.
Man or woman. Let's just to
Man
be
or
fair.
woman, like
Yeah.
those accounts work, and
Yeah.
so that's part of it, right? But when you're an
Right.
operator, it's the most important thing to get your content, and you just illustrated this example very well. The best
Yeah.
way for your content to take off is to have receipts. Like that is it. It's there is a problem out there that many people have, or a niche of people have. I have solved that problem. Here's how I solved it. Here's how I made me feel. Here's how I was frustrated. Here's how I failed to solve it before. Here's how I solved it now. And here are the steps that you could solve it as well. It's education, it's problem solving, and it's the receipts behind it. Any of those pieces are missing, the content starts to fail, right? Like what we're seeing now is there are a lot of people who want to build an account for all the reasons that we just talked about. They want to grow their followings, but they don't have the receipts. So if you
100%.
don't have the receipts, like you cannot be a good operator brand. You can't be a good operator because you're not showing that you've operated. You could be very entertaining. Maybe you could gain a following that way, but you're not like a true operator.
Well, I think there's also like which shout out to all the people trying to figure it out along the way. I appreciate that. Also shout out to all the people that are mid-20s, early career, trying to figure out what you know and don't know. Like nothing wrong with that. But like, yeah, you get into like platitude world. I see this a lot. A lot of my followers now are like junior sellers, and I love that they're going out there and giving each other advice, and they'll do like calling jokes, overcoming objections. But then like the stuff that they're saying, I'm like, dang, dude, welcome to a Jim Collins book 20 years ago. It's like, this isn't new and insightful. This isn't a receipt. This isn't like groundbreaking. But also don't stop. Like, please keep doing what you're doing, because I do think that the receipts come with time.
Yeah, exactly. And like the things that worked in the past are the things that work now. Like, you talk about like Jim Collins or Stephen Covey, or like all of these like kind of old school, like, or Brian Tracy, or like all this like old school, like
we're way back now.
We're going way Tracy. Back. Yeah, so it's like the old school sales advice is like a lot of that advice is like the same. It's the same themes, but it's like carried through to social media, which is like, building trust. Having integrity, like having receipts is like the integrity. People smell that. If you can explain how you solved a problem, if you could show them on video, if you could show them through an infographic or a carousel on LinkedIn, and they can see the steps that you've taken, the clicks that you've made, how you've done that, and then you show why with results, like that is building trust. That is building integrity. Like those are the same types of attributes that made a successful salesperson in the past. We're just doing it a different way now. Like we're doing it through content. We're doing it through a different medium.
Where would you tell, I always like this question, and pick whichever archetype here you like the most. But one of these are two real people that I'm going to use fake names for. But one of them is like a mid-50s CFO, and she works for a private equity company, and she has a gigantic stake in that company selling again, right? So it's in her best interest to see the company successful. So $120 million PE company, mid-50s, female CFO, posts nothing. I think when she looks at that, she's like, no, that's what my daughter does. Or she looks at that and she's like, no, I don't want to compete with whatever Instagram girls on there. So that's one. The question is like, what would you tell them to start doing now? And then the second one is what I lovingly refer to as like the me's, like the mid 40-year-old males that are in company leadership. They've been your traditional stale white guy, corporate guy for a long time, which again, I don't mean this in any political way. I just think people see that as like a boring bucket. And my point for the me's, you have to find a different way. I can't get on screen and like dance on TikTok, It's like something else has to show scarce resources, authority, whatever, to get attention. So for either of those, pick the one that you like talking about the most. Their goal is to grow the business. What would you tell them to start doing first?
Yeah, let's talk about the CFO and let's talk about private equity.
Yeah, I love her. Good.
Yeah. And so like, we think about private equity and we think about like not necessarily an industry where you're going to have a lot of social media flying around, especially from
it's super boring. It's, to be clear, it's molecules, it's chemicals. It's like, so yeah, great. Yeah. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. Or like, but those are interesting to someone.
But she's valuable.
Yeah. Well, here's what my advice would be in that particular niche. And because like, first, there's probably a limiting belief around the fact that like, look, this is private equity and we don't do this. Like that's what my daughter does. You mentioned that. So I would say you have to start looking at folks who are doing it well first. Like look at pre-validated content. Good. Look at people that are doing it well first.
I like that.
John Gray, who's the CEO of Blackstone, has 300,000 followers on LinkedIn.
So
Now,
good.
now, why is his content so interesting? One, he's the CEO of Blackstone. Like everybody looks at that as being
Mm,
like one of the largest and most prestigious PE firms in the world. So like,
mm,
okay, that's got it going for him. But I think it also some of the things that you just mentioned apply. Could be looked at as boring to a lot of people, like especially
mm.
creatives and etc. So why does his account do so well? Like why does he have such a big following? Why does he have so much engagement? He talks from his lens and his expertise around the
Mm.
market and what he's doing. He's like really for anybody that's into business, he's giving
Mm.
kind of like macro level advice. But the thing
Yes.
that really ties it in and makes it real is he's like doing it
Mm.
on runs. He's like doing it on runs in Central
Yeah, yeah.
Park. He's doing it when
That's
he's on
funny.
on his
Okay.
family trip,
Okay.
and you're seeing parts of his life that you would not
Yes.
normally see a CEO of Blackstone. Like a CEO of Blackstone,
Okay.
the only part you're going to see of their life is them with a suit on a photo
Yeah,
on the company leadership page, and then maybe in the press, maybe on CNBC,
that's right.
but you're not going to see them in running shorts in Central Park with their hair not done right,
That's so
and
good.
like
So let me ask a
so
dumb
that's
audience
why it's
question
working.
then.
Yeah, and I'll
So
say one
so
last thing for the
yeah, yeah,
CFO,
yeah, yeah.
which is, you know, that might not be exactly what she wants to do. Maybe she doesn't want to go running, but there's something that makes her unique. There's something about her life that makes her more human
Yes.
and less of like the executive persona. And people want to see those two things married together. So I would use someone that's in an industry which feels like
Mm.
very similar, and this goes to anybody in any industry outside of private equity,
Mm-hmm.
is like look for someone in that industry who's like doing it well, and usually you'll find somebody like a John Gray,
Mm.
and then you can
Mm.
kind of use them as an example. Like John's not doing TikTok dances, that would be ridiculous. But
Right.
like what he is doing is he's kind of showing a personal side of himself that people relate to. So
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my question then was just, and it's unpacking it like the 101 or dummies for dummies. So CFO professional suit, she does the same thing. It looks like a glamour shots from 20 years old. She's in the padded suit, but like, so operator brand, personal brand, it's kind of what you just described, right? We're still a CFO, a high powered CFO, but like she's showing her coffee or her favorite book, or she's bringing in the human elements. So is that fair to say this is what you mean in blending those two?
video and
Yeah.
her potentially talking on video and then
Yeah.
explaining things that are really interesting that are adjacent to hot topics, right? So
Yeah.
like
You know what she did? Because again, no, the rest of the world doesn't know this, and maybe she'll never tell them. But she lost her key analyst. There's only like 12 people in that office, and half of them were finance. Well, she lost her key analyst, and I was running Salesforce for them. And then she was trying to get all the data into Data Rails, which is another SaaS company that does like it's like spreadsheets on steroids. She went into Chat GPT, and like her and Chat just like did the whole Data Rails integration. No analyst that she had to lean on, no outside developers. She did it late nights, like 10 p.m., glass of wine, still working her tail off at the office. And I just think on that, I'm like, you just did something that would take months before, and it's like it's such a good story, and no one will
amazing
ever know
story.
about it.
And
Yeah, it's, and that's
and guess what? It's a story I care about. Like you just mentioned that
yeah.
story, and I'm already immediately thinking to myself because like we're building an AI product. I'm like, how did she do that? Like, what did she use? What tools did she use? Was she
100%.
using Chat? Was she using Claude? Like, how did she import it? What did she do? So like her telling that story would be interesting to me, even if
Yes,
I could care less about like the day in the life of a CFO at a private equity firm. And
that's
I'm
right.
not saying that I actually find that interesting, but like I know a lot of people wouldn't.
Right.
I care about that story because it's like AI related, and that is exactly what I'm talking
That's right.
about. It's adjacent to a hot topic, but it's just kind of told a different way. And if I saw that
Yes,
on LinkedIn with the right hook, with a
that's right.
good image, I would be clicking see more, and I would be trying to figure out how this
Yeah,
executive, who I am thinking is not technically savvy, did
that's right.
something that was so profound using AI. I would be really interested in
Yes.
that. I would be clicking see more, right? And I'm
Right.
not
And
even,
she's
and
more
I'm
and
not, yeah,
and now but also to your earlier point, she's more than just the headshot on the which they have like every PE company on the page with all the people. In fact, nobody ever wears blazers to the office, but we did a quarterly, we did a whatever you call it, every 4 months offsite. And we all put the blazers on and got the little headshot. I'm like, nobody wears blazers ever during the day. Anyway, she was in those. But so she's not the headshot anymore. She's a high level operator at that point. And then I'm like, so you're talented now. But what's missing is like, you're not bridging the gap between getting that to market. You said a few things just now. I want us to see if we can go into more. First off, you were dumping gold on the tactical side, which if you spend as much time as you want on that, like the hooks and the images, what types of posts work. But before we get to that, dang, I think we are just gonna have to go to that. I lost my train of thought. But what else then would you tell people is really, really juicy? Like, okay, you've decided you got to do this. Here's some tools that can help you, like Stan. But what are the fundamentals? You know, it's like you want to not be cringe, but this is a good post. This is not a good post. You know what I mean?
100%. And I think before we even get to posting, we'll start with something that's a little bit more fundamental, which is like LinkedIn is a network and it's a community, and you can't forget that. So like that's the most important thing. So when I started posting, I posted for 2 months straight without doing much engagement. When my content actually started taking off, it wasn't because like miraculously my content went from a 0 to a 10 in like overnight. It didn't. It took a while for me to get better at writing. But what I did do is I started targeting folks that were in a specific niche that I liked, and I started engaging with them. So you mentioned like in my post, like in my comment section, you will see LinkedIn like influencers in my comment section today.
That's right.
And the reason is I built relationships with them over 2 years. Like these are people who I've met with when they come to New York City. You know, I've had coffee with, I've had lunch with, I've had dinner with. Good. We've talked in DMs, we've done coffee chats, we've done Zooms, we've exchanged LinkedIn advice and knowledge, and we kind of have grown up together. There's some people that have audiences that are in like the multiple six figures, and I knew them when they had an audience of like 8K. And so we just happen to be posting about the same thing. So it's
I noticed you have an early nurture on that. I'll try to remember that question later as a strategy, because I want you to keep going on what you're on now.
Yeah, so targeting folks that are in your niche, and then maybe even prospects too, if you're using LinkedIn as a sales tool. And then just starting to engage on those creators' posts, right? Like making yourself known, because what's going to happen then is they're going to, everyone wants engagement. We just talked about the ego hit you get when it's like crickets on your post. Everyone wants engagement. It's a gift. So when you're engaging on somebody else's post, you're giving that person a gift, and they will reciprocate back to you. Like over time, maybe not immediately, and maybe not if they have 1 million followers. Like I wouldn't recommend like the top people because they're just too busy. But like I definitely would recommend folks that are in the like 5,000, 10,000, $25,000 follower range, and then starting to build relationships with them, because that will give you that initial boost of engagement on your posts, and you will get your posts out into their audience, because when they comment on yours, it'll show up in their audience's feed. So that is like the juiciest thing outside of just making your content better for you to start growing on LinkedIn is that engagement.
I've got there are some people that I comment on frequently because I really like the way they write and what they write about, but also they'll never really fit on the show, which doesn't mean that, like venture capital. I'm fascinated by it, but the show really isn't about venture capital, and there are plenty of great shows out there for VC, 20 VC being one of them. But I still comment on that. And some of these people have like slid into my DMs and said, thank you for the engagement. So, you know, it is a gift. Yeah. I remember as you were unpacking this, I remembered the other bookend to the question of like the juicy tactics. So LinkedIn is a networking platform. And in my opinion, AI, leaning too heavily on AI, is ruining your chances with that real human experience. Cautionary tale there. So I think one of the objections that maybe you'd have to overcome with Stanley part of Stan, when you say it's AI-led content, I think people need to understand how that doesn't just mean go into ChatGPT or like take whatever AI takes and like paste that in there. So in that sort of what's next framing, I want to get into like what these what these operator brands should be doing, but then also like the uses of AI and then the cautions of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So like AI slop is
For
what to
sure.
be not putting out on LinkedIn. And AI slop is typically like content that feels it has all of the you can kind of like sniff all of the AI
100%.
stuff. Like it started with M dashes, even though that's like not really necessarily a thing anymore. But then it progressed into like, it's not X, it's Y, and like there's different
Patterns. Yeah.
the all of the different patterns in the text, right? So like
Yeah.
those things it's important not to put that out there because it's like
Mm,
we don't want to put out AI slop and you're not going to stand out from the crowd putting out AI slop. So like
that's right.
rule number one, it's important not to produce AI slop. So how can you and then like let's have a second fundamental principle.
Mm,
All content written online is going to be written with AI. The amount of
mm,
so people are like, well, it's an AI tool, so it's like creating AI slop. Do you
mm.
think any post on LinkedIn is being written without an edit? Hey,
Okay.
check this out. Hey, help me.
Yeah.
Every single post that is getting posted on LinkedIn. I'm not saying like
Well,
I'm
the
sure
good
there's
ones at least.
I'm sure there's
Yeah.
outliers that are like people just let it rip and like do a short post.
I haven't
But
been
if you're
using
right,
it, but the posts have not been good. To be clear, I want to be real clear. Don't go model mine right now. I'm still feeling some things out, and they're horrible.
so all content is going to get created with AI. So like our
Okay.
emails, our Slack, like everything is going to get created with AI eventually because
Mm,
that is the way that the world is going. There's not something that we can fight. The key is creating content with AI that gets you. So it understands, it
yeah.
has your context, it has your personal stories. And instead of
Yeah.
telling a generic story about how to solve a problem, which someone could just
Mm,
Google, it's actually weaving in your perspective. So, based on
yeah.
the experiences that you've had, based on the successes and the failures that you've had, based on how you felt about those successes and failures as they happen, like your human experience, it is able
Mm,
to capture all of that together and understands that's an important part of the story to tell that, right? So
mm.
that's what we're building at Stanley. We're building that connective tissue that is from your Gmail, your granola, your calendar
Yeah.
getting sucked in. Maybe you wrote a book. So we're working with a client that we ingested their book. And so now every time they tell a story about a problem that they solved, it's included in that as a
Mm.
personal story from the book that it knows is relevant. So
Can you
now it's an
unpack
AI that's
that
actually,
just to
yeah, sure.
can unpack that part just a little bit more because maybe it was just my wrong assumption, but so there are some little 2-bit competitors to Stanley. Would you say Stanley is the OG out there at this point?
Content creation wise, good content creation AI
Yeah.
for LinkedIn, yes, 100%.
Okay. There's some alternatives out there, and again, shout out to everyone trying to carve out your piece of the market. I have total respect, but the gist is like I start using it, it starts learning me, it learns my voice, it gets better over time. But what I just heard you say is like, let's actually give it you. Like, what's your
1,000%.
Gmail? Okay, tell me about that. What are the inputs that you're encouraging people to put into that? And then how does that work for them?
The only way, like the thing that you realize when you're a content creator is that you're always looking for content ideas, right? So like
Mm,
you might have this when you start out, like I've posted 750, like 80 times on LinkedIn. I don't know how many times, like
mm,
780, I
mm,
think, last time I checked. So
mm,
you have a bank of stories. Like
mm.
I've grown companies, I've helped them grow. Like you can't keep telling those old stories. Like that
Yeah.
is becomes irrelevant after a while, and it's about what you're doing now. Okay, so
Mm,
like having kind of always on context that feels a little bit more ambient is really
mm.
key to creating great content. So how do you get that ambient context? Well, you're creating data every day. Like we're creating a podcast right now,
Mm.
but like you're having
That's right.
Zoom meetings. Those Zoom meetings create meeting
Mm-hmm.
notes. Everybody has their note takers now. You have
Mm.
a calendar with different meetings in it to suggest ideas. You have email that's going back and forth with people.
Mm.
You have Slack messages that are going on. You have
So good.
iMessage that's going back and forth. So through all of these, ideas are getting formed. And sometimes you're just like on a run and you're like, oh, I have an idea and I want to capture it. And Stanley can do that too. But the
Okay.
ideas become a kernel of a post that's important. So
That's so good.
so we have ambient context going on all the time. And like
Mm.
this is something that's super important. You have to connect that context if you want to write things that are good.
I'm
Otherwise, you have
so
the AI
interested in it
slot
now.
problem. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I remember when the CEO sent me that, for whatever you guys care about this feedback, it was like a 3-day trial, and I was like, sorry, Stan, like I can't figure out anything in 3 days. Like,
I'll
I'll
get
come
you.
back
I'll
to
get you a
this.
better trial.
Okay, so for example, you mentioned this podcast, right? I love the podcast. I would do this all day if I could, but it's not lost on me that I literally have 30 hours of my voice out there with different. Now, also, if you think about how profound this is, weird word for that, but like, I have had CFOs from Israel in this company, CFOs from Singapore, CFOs from the United States, CROs from small companies to big companies. I've had content creators. So it's like, not only is it 30 hours of my thoughts, but it's 30 hours of my processing and reactioning to a myriad different disciplines. And I'm just like, man, how do I AI myself like right now? Like, I just need everything to come in there. And I still like the human experience. Like, what I like is that it would set me up to be able to do this more, the human side of it.
100%.
Yeah, I'm so jazzed about the idea that, the other day I was talking with someone, he pulled his plaid note taker out, however you say it. And it was great. It captured the essence of everything and like shot us both an email later on. No screens, no computers, nothing. So
And that's
I
pretty
think
cool.
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so like, yeah, if you think about, there's no better way to build trust than kind of what we're doing now, which is like talking, having your voice out
Yes.
there. And you think about some of these brands that are out there, like, Gary Vaynerchuk, who's been doing it forever, Stephen Bartlett, who's been doing it forever, like Joe Rogan, like these people have the
Yes.
same thing, which is, they're online and they're not only like kind of like discussing ideas, to your point, they're processing, and like it shows you how they
Yes.
process, how they react, like, and through
Yes.
all of that, that's how you get a feel for a person.
Yes. I also, for whatever it's worth, I went through several styles of content you would call it. So like stage niche, talking head, which for all you CEOs out there, I still sometimes for small business, to be fair, I still say, listen, let's sit down, let me ask you some questions. You're going to talk for 8 minutes. Just do it. My whole world changed when it was just like me talking to you, MJ. And it's everything. Maybe that's because it fits me. I never
Yeah,
scripted any of my videos. I love to just meet the person and genuinely hear the story. And now all of a sudden, like the content type fit me. And I think what
yep,
I'm telling the nervous creators out there is, sometimes I hear advice. It's like, go put this idea in the chat, get yourself a script. Well, if that's not you, don't do that. Don't sit awkwardly in front of your phone reading a teleprompter. Like, find the thing that works for you. And for me, it has been real conversations with real people, and everything took off for me then.
yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
Okay, so there's a ton to say about AI. I'd love to hear whatever your thoughts on that, but also I want to unpack some of your posts. So wherever you want to go now, is there more you would tell the audience about using AI or tactics on the post? I do think it'd be amazing if you could just at a high level break down what is a good post. So maybe these founders get away from like, here's my square little tile that marketing made for me, and it's got the branding and like my face in the blazer again. Whatever you want on that. And then I want to unpack some of your posts.
Cool. So on LinkedIn, if you use these like two principles, like this will, and you use this kind of the lens of every post, this will get you pretty far.
Can I
And then we
read your
can talk
post
about
then? Because
tactics.
it is, your post says exactly that. Let me just read it then. I want to read that one. It was really good. You said every LinkedIn post should do two things. My question was, what were those two things? For the audience listening, he has an amazing infographic that really breaks this down. So, yeah, for sure. Let's dig into that one.
So the two things are, number one, it should make the audience feel a little bit closer to you. What do I mean by that? It's the personal story that we talked about before. It's your receipts for how you solved that particular problem. So like every time on this podcast, when I've said I've posted 780 times, I'm doing something there. I am building credibility. I'm showing you a receipt. So now when I talk about LinkedIn, I have credibility. Why? I've posted 780 times. That's a lot of posts on LinkedIn. Like, so
Yeah.
doing that is really important because it kind of sets the stage, and you could actually do it in just one line. It doesn't need to be a full personal story. It's not your diary. You could do it in just one line. You can just kind of say like, look, I posted 780 times on LinkedIn. or I grew by 500 followers yesterday. Like people are like, okay, that's a receipt. So, and then as part of that, making people feel closer to you is kind of describing your personal experience with the issue. So like the
Yeah.
emotion that you had when you did that, like explaining how you did it, explaining how you felt. People will resonate with that because if you were frustrated by a problem, they're frustrated by a problem. If you felt a certain way when you failed, they're going to feel a certain way when they failed and they're looking for a solution. So it's those things that make it resonate. So that's making someone feel a little bit closer to you. That's number one. Number two is it communicates something that is useful that they could do, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's solving the problem. It has to
Do you know
be like,
why? Let me give the audience a bad example. Like sometimes I'll find an influencer and it's like I just jogged around Manhattan and I'm like, I don't care. It's like it's about to be a super unuseful post. So
yeah.
tell stories that are real, but like they need to be super relevant and useful to what this person wants to hear.
Yes, and like there's a good book around storytelling that I absolutely love. It's by this author named Matthew Dixon. It's called Storyworthy. And
Okay,
one of the things that he says in this book is like you don't need to get eaten by the shark. Like
let me write that
you
down.
don't need to.
Story worthy.
It's Storyworthy. It's
Okay.
fantastic.
Second time I've heard that recommended. So I always buy it on the second time I hear it recommended.
He says you don't need to get like eaten by a shark, meaning you don't have to tell this story and like try to connect it to your like B2B SaaS. Like you can tell a story that somebody sees themselves in. It may just be like being late for the train. It may just be like how you felt when you failed at something. It may be like you were frustrated because you were trying to set up OpenClaw, but it like took you all day long. Like those little stories create a connection. You don't need to
Yes.
create this like, tall tale or like connect your run in Central Park to your work in
Yeah.
some way if it feels inauthentic because you feel like the story of you actually doing the thing is just not valuable enough. It is. So you can tell
Yeah.
smaller stories. You can create stakes in smaller stories. You can create connection in smaller stories. So it doesn't have to be
That's an
super
art and a
crazy.
skill,
Yeah.
to be fair. There's a one day somebody was explaining to me, I think it was a course that I bought, but they were like, social media is for the viewer, not for you. So that was the first lesson. I was like, oh, that's a good point. And then his whole shtick was like, you want to create a cinematic experience because people don't want to get on social media to just see something boring. And the other day, my wife and I were watching Man on Fire again, Denzel Washington. Do you know the movie?
I know the movie. I haven't seen it, but I know it.
It's an older movie, and and just movies changed when like that's 2.5 hours, but they're setting up this stage and they're just giving you enough information, but you got it. The problem when you first start hearing about storytelling is you like overshare all these details. It's like I was running through Central Park and passed a pigeon on my right, and then like I was just thinking about how nervous I was. So there's an art there to like you got to tell the story in a way that like that's not oversharing.
Yeah. I think the best advice I've ever heard or read is by this author and operator, and her name's Wes Cow, and she basically says like start the story right before you get eaten by the bear.
So
And
good.
her point is like most people start the story at like, well, I had to go to REI and get some camping gear, and then after I got some camping gear, we had to get the kids in the car, and then after we got the kids in the car, and then we set up the tents, and then after we set up the
Yeah.
tents, and then the bear came. It's like you want to start the story at like I heard a sniffing next to my tent. I was terrified. Like that's where you start the story. And most people
So good.
I see when they're starting out on LinkedIn, and this is kind of like a good segue into hooks and why hooks are important.
Yeah.
Like you can't start there. Like a lot of people, a
Yeah.
bad hook is where you're starting at REI buying the
Yeah.
camping equipment, and they're bearing the lead. And like when you're writing a hook, you really need to start like right before you get eaten by the bear. So like
Yeah.
the action has to come first, and that's what's like pulling people into your story, right? Because like no one wants to. Everyone's like, I don't want to hear your camping story, but like if you're like, hey, I zipped my tent open at 1 a.m. and I saw a bear staring at my face, like, that's your hook? Like, people are like,
Good.
wait,
Great
what
hook.
is going to happen? Yeah,
That was so
exactly.
good. You know, I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that because when I first learned hooks, they were like shocking, stop the scroll. And I
Yeah.
have a little document of like 100 hooks and
Cool.
silly stuff like this might not be a popular opinion or an unpopular truth about whatever. But those get disconnected from the story, right? Because you're trying to force the hook. What you just did was more artistic. It was more organic, rather. Like there's a story, right? But if you want someone to hear the story, you have to start it at the right spot, or nobody's going to listen to the story.
Exactly.
That was good. That was good. It was
And
much more powerful.
so the other advice I would give is like, and this is based on my data, hooks that start with I are always going to perform better, and you should have a
I wanted
number
to
of,
ask you about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they're always going to perform better. I know some creators out there that are good, very good with fear-based hooks. So like a fear-based hook
Yeah.
would be something like, you know, you're not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to get replaced by someone that's using AI. It's like a fear-based hook, right?
Yes.
So like
Yes.
those can work really well. I know some creators that use those often to great effect. But typically for most people, what you're going to want to do is like start with an I statement. And it like proves that you told the story. It's
Yeah.
like they immediately, the reader immediately gets hooked in because they know that there's going to be a personal element to it, and they know that you've done it, so they know it's not going to be slop. Now you could not deliver on that, so like the rest of the story could be slop, and then you're going to run into a
Well,
problem. But
I did that wrong the other day, and maybe let's take a quick coaching moment because when people hear you say this, they're going to go Google hooks, right? And you're going to find one of these files that I have open right now, and I'm just going to read a few. One of the number one secret to blank is, or this is probably going to ruffle some feathers, or here's how to blank, or if you're struggling with blank, this is your problem. If you notice, I could go on and on, but I won't. Like, or another one, here's the secret to, or here's one simple hack to. Okay, these worked really well for me for a year, and I would cycle through like 6 of them on YouTube Shorts, and I noticed if I started with these hooks, it made a different views. But none of them are I statements, right? And I started hearing people on LinkedIn show me real data. Like I played with the hooks, and if I was in the first 5 words, it got X% more views or whatever. And so first off, I was just like, all right, that's interesting. Let's not ignore data. But then I tried to take these other hooks and like just insert the word I in it, and it didn't work. So like,
yeah,
what is an I hook, and why do you think it's working better?
I think it's like goes back to like the receipts thing, and I think it's working better because of the AI slop. Like 2 years ago, if you were going to write the poster that says something like, you know, what 90, and I've used these before, like they're not horrible. So like I've used what 90% of creators don't know on LinkedIn, right? So like
Yeah.
usually if you wrote that in the past, you would have to write it. Like you would either like
Yeah.
plagiarizing it off the internet or you would write it. So like you had at least enough knowledge to write that post. Today, you and I in the next 10 seconds could say, I want to write a post with this hook, and ChatGPT is
So
going to
good.
spit out a post that is exactly that.
You're
And
so right.
and so now though people are tired of that because it's just like they will still work if you already have credibility to begin with. So if you have a big audience, you can still use
Yes.
those hooks. But if you're just growing, and I think like most of your audience will be in this point where they're like trying to figure it out, or
Yeah.
they're just growing, or they have maybe a small audience, they're trying to figure out how to grow it. It's like those fear-based hooks aren't going to work for you because you just don't have that credibility, you don't have that audience, and it's better for you to start with I and show that you have receipts to build trust early on, and then you can get a little bit fancier with it. Like
That's so good.
once you have an audience that's showing up every day, you know, and you know they're going to show up,
Yes.
then you can write a hook that's a little bit
Yeah, but
more
I still
not that.
think that's so funny you said that because you're right. I saw the landscape change around us. We all agree it did. And even 2 years ago, you could do like they called them listicles, you know, like 3 to 5 things.
Yep.
I have grown fond of saying, even over the last 4 months, like in the age of AI, the human voice is ringing so loud. Like,
So
don't
loud.
miss this opportunity to be able to say, like, this stuff didn't work 5, 10 years ago. You couldn't just say, I was walking through the park. Yeah, but you're so right. People are looking for humans and they're looking for stories. That
Yep.
that really unpacked that for me, MJ. That's amazing.
Totally. And it's like if you then you include a number in that, you have like you're doubling down on it. So it's like I posted 700 times on LinkedIn. I grew my following by X. I sold a company for $5 million.
I read 7 books last month. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
following. I'm picking up.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And then you can follow that up with a rehook that's something that builds a little bit more intrigue. So like I read 7 books last month. My takeaway isn't something
Yeah.
that you could ever guess. It's like,
Oh, so good. Yeah.
yeah, and so like those are the things that are working because they know the personal story is coming, and they know that you've read 7 books, or at least like they believe you
You're
that you've
about
read
to say
7 books.
you did. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So like, yeah, that's the stuff that I'm seeing work out there, and I think it's really important. And I do see like a little bit of the longer form content versus the listicle. Listicles, and I've done these posts forever. I still do them I still do them today, but uh, when you combine it with some longer like narrative, like maybe 3 or 4 sentences in a paragraph versus the really tight, concise writing that used to work on LinkedIn, which was kind of like one sentence paragraphs with a line break in
Yeah.
them. I see those like longer paragraphs starting to kind of come back into
Is
fashion
it?
now.
It's I so first off, I know what a swipe file is, and for some reason, shame on me, I just haven't been taking enough screenshots. But I've been reading some long form. I'm like, man, this was really good writing, and I got all the way to the end of it, and I was able to scan, and it made sense, and it was useful, and it gave me something to engage with. But I'm also seeing like word salad. Do you know what I mean? Where it's just like you're lost in paragraphs. So
Yeah.
so then every once in a while I'll get a 3 sentence post and I'm like, thank you so much for just giving me something to like comment on here. So is the pendulum swinging here, or just like people are trying to do long form and a lot of them are doing it sloppy?
Well, I'll say it this way: there's a difference between good and bad writing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so like
that's fair.
there's just a difference, and so like no matter what the format is, there's a difference between good and bad writing, and so like going back to another example from Matthew Dix that he talks about is like there's kind of like a slippery slope, man. Like and the slippery slope is every word, every sentence in a story should kind of like build intrigue into the next sentence. And its job is to get you to read the next sentence. And so when you start thinking about a story that way, you start cutting a lot of this like extraneous stuff, right? So like that I was running through Central Park, maybe too much information. Maybe it's just
I
I was
agree.
running. I was running.
Yeah,
And he will say
yeah,
something else, which is you want to communicate the message in like the least amount of words as possible. And like he's very meticulous about eliminating stuff like so I'm running through Central Park. Maybe you're saying that because you want people to see you as a New Yorker, you want to feel cool,
for
whatever.
sure,
Like what
for
all
sure.
these reasons are, but the reader doesn't care. Like the
You're
reader is like
signaling. Yeah,
you're signaling and the reader's just like you can just
yeah.
be like I was running and this happened. It's like
I did read Stephen King's On Writing, which is it's a short book and it's so good. I don't even love his fiction, to be fair, but like his book On Writing was it really went into like he told a story of there was a rabbit in a cage on a table with a red tablecloth, and but then like he just pointed out that the person who just read that saw 7 people read it. They saw 7 different rabbits, 7 different cages. Was it red tablecloth with ruffle with frills or whatever,
yeah,
and so now
that's cool.
I've always appreciated editing, but he was about like ripping words out of there, especially adverbs, like things that end
Yeah.
in ly. Like I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
but you
get
know what I'm
that.
taking from everything that you're saying is which I was hoping was true too. I think that even in the age of AI, good copywriting doesn't go away, and maybe the computer gets better at it, but I almost think that it doesn't, because even when you look back at old American literature, there was a voice to it. You couldn't just say it was good writing. Um, I don't know. I heard an AI rendition of was it Jim Cone? It was some old. speaker, long dead, and he started talking about cell phones and Jim Rohn, and I'm like, all right, Jim Rohn died way before the cell phone, like, but it sort of ruined it. There was no good voice there, and so anyway, I guess my point is, I don't think good copywriting is going to die soon.
Agreed.
I don't know, and I
Agreed.
feel like if you invest in that, you go a long way for your business.
Like, and knowing that skill is important. It's like it's a good skill to learn. And like, that's something that we talk about all the time. It's like, that is quality content is typically not written by AI, but we are doing our best to create an AI platform that understands these facts, right? So like, understands what makes a good story, like why that line from Stephen King is important. Like, saying that the tablecloth is red for him is very important because it paints a picture.
Yeah.
So like, some things are really important, but he didn't say like the tablecloth was red and it had checkers and it was ruffled. That's and right. He's like, the That's red right. tablecloth, and like, it gives you enough without giving you too much. And there's an art to that.
What shape? I just thought of this. What shape was the table in your head?
Round.
Yeah, mine was round too. But it just occurred to me that it's like, we all made assumptions because of the rabbit in the cage. Oh, dang it, man. I've enjoyed the conversation so much, I'm forgetting these questions. Let me see. Let me look at your other post real quick. I wanted to get you on something big, but let's see. The other one was... Okay, we might be too far down the line for us. I'm going to throw it out there. You said, I ditched OpenClaw for HyperAgent. I'm just curious. That was today's. Do you want to talk about that? If it takes us down another 20 minutes, we don't have to. But
no, I'll leave that one out for now.
Okay, great. What is, if you could leave, if someone took 1.5 things from today's episode, what would you tell them you care so much about? Like, what do you want for this ideal client profile, these operator brands? What do you want them to hear here? What do you want them to take away? And then, like, what are next steps they can take, and how can they find you?
So the first thing I'll say is just distribution matters, and building an audience matters now more than any other time in history because of everything that we talked about today. So your content is your resume, and figuring out how to build an audience is a massive unlock for anybody who's listening. And it's an unlock for your business and sales. It's for opportunities that come your way. It's for credibility, just having credibility through having that audience. It's something that's super important. So investing then in that is key. And I just encourage everybody, please do it. It is going to open up opportunities for you no matter what.
Yeah, or try. And honestly, you could try it for 6 months. And if you're like, no, I hate this, then hire someone else to do it. That's fair. But
that's true. Yeah,
don't knock it. Definitely try it. Yeah.
So I'd say 1, like, building audience is important. And then I would say 2, creating content for anybody out there who is interested in personal growth, growing themselves, growing their business, becoming a better person. Creating content is personal growth on steroids. Like, you have to be more introspective about like your thoughts and how you feel. You have to put yourself out there, which is making you look at the world in a different way. Like, what problem can I solve? What can I write about? I actually have to do more. It'll push you to do more. So it'll push you to think more in a world where AI is creating all this content for us. Like, we're getting dumber for the first time in history. Creating content is the antidote for that. It is pushing you to use your head more. So, so it's personal growth on steroids, and it's super important.
That's so good. Where can they find you? What would be a next step they could take if they're interested in what you've talked about?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Come find me on LinkedIn. Give me a shout. MJ Jandl on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find me out there. Just search for me, and then that's it. Send me a DM.
Perfect. So good. If you guys made it this far with us, if you like this episode, I want you to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.